Okay, so this was the code snippet that we used. Can you guys see my screen? Can you guys see my screen? Hello.
I can see your screen, sir.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So this was the code snippets we used in the last class. Let me make it bigger. Okay. So and in this file, and in this file, we created a very simple HTTP server, right? Just like the type that your most web applications run on, you understand? So we used the HTTP module to create the server instance using this create server method here. Okay, and in this create server method, we now passed a callback function, and this callback function is supposed to run every single time the server receives a request, right? And that request object is stored in the first parameter, and then whatever response it sends back to the user is stored in its response parameter here. Okay, and then we talked about things like headers and body. Okay, so a request and a response is basically made up of two main components. Okay, at least the header and the body. Okay, and the header is basically just containing for the for the request body, for the request header rather, it is basically containing things like um, authentication cookies, um, the host, the endpoints that you want to visit, and then so many other things too that is contained in the request header. Okay, and then the body is basically that is if you are trying to fill a form, like let's say a Google form, your standardization form. Whenever you try to fill a form and you make a request to whenever you try to fill a form and you submit that form, basically the form is usually sent as a post request. Okay, the form is usually sent as a post request, and then the body of that form, which is basically the data that you filled, understand? Excuse me, I'm just trying to join. Okay, so the contents of that form you filled is usually sent as the request body, and and after you are done processing the user's request, you usually send back a response to them. Okay, so let's say the user is trying to log in, so they send their username and password in the request body. Then after they are done, you now send back an authentication cookie in the response header. Okay, you send back an authentication cookie in the response header, and then also in the body, you will now send something like the user object, okay, so that the front end will be able to populate the the user's dashboard, you understand, with things like the user's name, the user's profile picture link, and all of those things. You understand? So those are the kind of things that will be contained in the response body. So that is a very rough explanation. Next week, when we dive into Express.js proper, we'll be creating an Express server with all of these things. Right? And by the end of the week, we will all have a clear grasp of this whole request response cycle. Okay. So, it's trying to go. Okay. So let's do something a little bit more, um, let's say complicated before we move into the main lesson for today. Basically, that's a continuation of where we stopped yesterday. So I want to wait, I don't know. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, the class is being recorded. But can you guys see my screen? Yes, I cannot see
Yeah,
it
we
from
can
my
see.
second device. All right, thank you. Okay, so let's configure a basic route. So what I'm about to do now is something that Express.js basically um, helps us to handle out of the box. Understand? So I want to basically create a HTTP server now that's and configure a route. So let's say slash login so that whenever someone visits our endpoint, but in this case, since we'll be hosting the server on our local host, it's going to be whenever someone visits is a HTTP use the local host IP address, okay, and port 3000. Whenever someone visits this endpoint, the login endpoint, we are going to log them in. Okay, so let's proceed. The server that I don't like the PS code autocomplete because I don't use it. Because I don't like the information. Because response is how to switch the pin. I don't like this autocomplete. Okay, so let's say we receive a request, okay? I've created the server instance. And for the callback method, let's say we receive a request. So we need to pass the URL that is coming in, okay? So that we'll break it down. So I will break it down into different um, parts, okay? And the path name is going to be this past URL dot path name. So the path name is going to be like, let's say this is the full URL. The path name is going to be this slash login. Okay. Then the method is now going to be request dot method. So I don't know if you guys know what a request method is. Basically, they are usually how many request methods? You have the get method, you have the post method, you have the put method, you have the patch method, and we have the delete method. Okay, and I think also the head method as well. So all of these methods are what we use every single day when browsing the internet. Okay, this is how we tell the server what action we're trying to carry out. Okay, so usually, you would use the get method for something like a simple fetch request. Like let's say you want to um, get something like a list, okay? Where you're not like trying to change any data in the database. You understand? You're not trying to send any data to the backend to update something or to create new data. So and you just want to retrieve data. So you usually use the get request or simple read, okay, operations. Then for the post, you use it to send requests to the backend. You understand? Let me see. Okay. Then the put, yeah, I wasn't talking. The put method is basically used for update operations. Okay. So usually when you are designing a REST API, you'll be making use of all these requests and all these request methods. You understand? You will have them in mind when designing your API. So you will not use a post request when the user basically just wants to fetch their dashboard from the database. You understand? So you will not use a post request because you're not trying to update anything. So and then when you want to log the user in, you are not going to send a post request, or you use a put request. You understand? And then when you want to update, when you want to perform an update operation, you basically when you want to perform an update operation, let's say you want to update the user profile, you make use of the post request. Okay? And then patch is also the same thing. But this time around, you are basically not sending um, the whole fields. Okay, like let's say you want to update a user's profile, and then it's just the name that is going to change. So with patch, you with the implementation, you are going to design. It's a design implementation. You are only going to be sending something like this, like just the name, their name. The user wants to update their profile name or their username. You don't be sending only the username. You're sending the whole user objects as just the way the backend sends it. Okay. And then we now have the for delete operations. Okay. And then we have the head method. This one is basically when you just want to when you just want to fetch the head, the what is it called? The response head. Okay. So let's say fetching the response head. But basically, you're not the one that is going to be using this head method most of the time. So your browser is basically the one that is going to be using this thing for pre-flight, what is it called, request. You understand? So sometimes you use this head to know which methods are available, you understand, for a particular endpoint. So it first of all does this head and then sees what method. It's just something that the browser does, you understand? You don't just handle this on your own. So I'm just letting you know, I'm just bringing it to your attention. Understand? So you don't have to worry about the head method. So let's proceed. So we have captured the request method here. Then the next thing that we're going to do now is to uh, route the get request. Okay. Let's say whenever someone visits our project script, I want this to come up. How do I do this now? I also have to read now client. Okay. So whenever someone visits our project root, so whenever the path name, this path name that was extracted from the URL, whenever it is the root, okay, and the method is equal to get, then we want to send them a response, okay, a response dot write 200. You know what this 200 means, right? This 200 means the status code that means okay, that the operation was successful. You understand? So whenever let's say you usually send this 200, for instance, user logs in into your backend, for instance, your backend engineer, user logs in and then they send in their username and password. And as soon as you've validated that username and password, you will now send the 200 status code informing the front end that operation was um, was successful. Okay. Then we now want to write a response header. What's the response header we're writing? Content type header. You basically tell the web browser how to um, handle this HTML, how to handle the response body that we are sending to it. You understand? Because the browser won't know what exactly you are sending as the response body. If you don't tell it that, okay, the response body is going to be HTML, I want you to pass this as the HTML on the and render it on the browser. Okay. is very important, but most of the times, your framework will be the ones passing this complaint type, so you will not have to worry, you understand, about it. Then after we are done, we will now send the body, basically giving the user a response that, and let's just write a very simple um, response here, home page, okay? And then an anchor tag that redirects to the about endpoint, okay? And then that's it. There's the anchor tag, okay? So now we can test this out before any other thing. I do not close this server. It is closed. Now, okay. So let's run this. Um, I did start the server. Okay. Okay. So after creating the server, you need to start it. Very important. Server that's listing on ports 3000. So you know what a port is now? A port is basically um like it's just like a door into your computer network. Okay. So just say like you have a house now with so many entrances, and including the windows, the doors, and everything. So a port in a server is basically one of those entrance. So different services usually have specific port numbers. You understand? For example, now the HTTPS ports. When we visit a website using this protocol, this HTTPS protocol, okay, the website will usually route that traffic to the um, ports 443, you understand, 443, you understand. But if you are using this HTTP, the one without encryption, you understand, that says encryption, it does route a request to either the port 80 or port 8080. So these are like ports that you as a backend developer should be aware of, you understand. So when you are configuring your Nginx, your Nginx server, when configuring your Nginx server, you usually listen on these ports for these different requests, you understand. And most of the times you would not have your application running on you will not want anybody to send anything sensitive to this port. So whenever they send to port 80, you will just redirect them to this um, port 443. You understand? But for this my own application now, I want it to run on port 3000. Most Express apps run on port 3000. You understand? But you can always change it, of course. It's not like a must to use this port. It just be like let's say and expect the port you're expected to use. You understand? So just run this log as soon as it starts server running the HTTP local host to identify the IP address 2000 Okay. Now can now run this. Limit. Mm, it's not connecting. It crashed. Okay. The URL is not defined. Let's check our code. You're having a syntax error. So URL is not defined on line 25. Let's go to line 25. The URL is not defined, which is true. We did not import the URL module. URL. Okay. Let's run again. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Here's the loop. It's taking forever. Okay, so our home page. Let me inspect this page now. Okay, so this is just what. Let me open the file. So I just opened a new terminal process. Um, so our application is still running here. Understand? In this other terminal process, and I just created a new one so I can you can view the file. Okay, so this is the response that we sent, and this is exactly what is being shown in our content. Understand? So, like I said, if you don't, if you don't pass the correct content type, yes, you are sending. Yes, this is a HTML syntax, but if you don't tell the browser that this is supposed to be HTML, the browser is not going to assume anything. So I restarted the server after changing my source file. It's very important that you do that. Whenever you change your source file, you need to restart your server. So you don't tell the browser how it should interpret the response body. It is just going to use whatever content type the way you wrote it. You understand? And here I passed what is it called? Content type text type slash plain. It does straight returning it as a plain text instead of rendering it as a HTML body. I'll correct this now and then we'll proceed with another endpoint. Okay. Then for the second route, get slash about a a let me start please so that you can see that the about endpoint, this about endpoint, this in this anchor tag here, this about endpoints, you know that we've not handled it yet. You understand? So why is this still returning this thing? I've not saved this out. Okay, to load it. Okay, so let me click this about and listen now. About link. and see where it takes us to. I'm sure it has to break because let me just visit it. Although I don't think it will give any response because we did not even handle any we didn't have any exception handler. Like let's say in a case where the endpoint does not exist, you understand? It needs to tell the user that okay, this endpoint does not exist too. You understand? Look here now. You see that I'm trying to visit this endpoint that doesn't exist and it just keeps loading. And why is it loading endlessly? At least it's supposed to show something like a false for now. You understand? That is because the only response that we're sending to the user is when they visit this root endpoint. You understand? That is using this response.end here. So without this, so let's just see what it's doing here. So let's say we sent the request trying to visit the about endpoint, then the request came in, called this callback function, okay, pass URL, path name, method, and then it came here if path name is equal to root, but then the path name is now slash about, so it's going to skip this if block, and then it goes down, hoping to see the slash about endpoint, and then something, 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 he can't find it. And at the same time, we are not returning anything. We're not calling this method again. You understand? We're not calling this, excuse me. We're not calling this method again to at least tell the user that okay, method not found or path not found or something went wrong. Understand? So would I'll add that now before even handling the as about endpoints. So so if nothing, so I need to return at this point, say so it doesn't. Okay. So as soon as it sends this response, it doesn't try to read anything down here again, you understand? So we need to exit this function at this point. Because I mean, I don't know, are you guys understanding me? Are you guys with me? And I feel like it thumbs up. Hello, are you guys with me? Okay, please, Henry.
So I'm with you, but honestly, I'm a bit lost.
Yeah, where are you lost?
Uh, the other, I was having a network issue though, but where I stopped was when you were explaining about the HTTP port and HPS. And I want to ask the difference between HTTPS and HTTP without the S. Is it that one is secure
Mm.
and the other one is open? Oh, I don't know if I'm correct or wrong. Yes, this
Yes,
please
yes, you're
now.
actually correct. You're actually correct. So the difference is basically for security reasons, you understand? You know, when you make a request to a server somewhere in the cloud, so there's usually like a connection between your web browser and that server. And but in between, you know that there are a lot of there are a lot of routing that needs to happen for your um for you to be able to browse, you understand? You have your network providers, MTN, you send requests to them to like through the maps, you understand, and then somehow they will route those that traffic to the IP address that you're trying to visit. You understand? So all of these things involved, there are like people, a lot of parties involved in making sure that your request gets to that backend, and then that backend also sends a response. But then with the way the internet has gone now, a lot of all this communication needs to be secured. Because I mean, if they are sending sensitive data to the backend, let's say like your credit card, your card information, you understand? You don't want someone that is in between to be able to see these things. You understand? You don't want someone that is in between to be able to see your card information, to see your login password, your login credentials. So that is why they invented this HTTPS. You understand? Basically just um a a an encryption that happens between your browser and the backend so that requests are sent in a very secured format so that somebody in between, they say like your friend that shared you hotspots now, understand, cannot like intercept your request. Yes, it is very possible that your friend that's on their hotspots for you can intercept your request and see every single thing you're doing. If you are not using this 443 ports, you understand? Not 443 port. If you're not using this HTTPS, you understand? If there's no encryption between your browser and the server, someone in between can sniff your request and see everything you are doing, like without having to stress themselves. That is why they invented this HTTPS, so that you can use public Wi-Fi without fear of someone stealing your information and all of these things. You understand, Henry?
Yes, I do that. I understand that.
All right. So any other question? Okay, no question. So, oh, this is still loading, sir. So it's still waiting for a response. It is still waiting for a response, and we not configured anyone for it yet. So if if no path was matched, okay, then just end the request. Just end the request. Say something went wrong, or you cannot say um, error 404. Let's say response dot right head, very important. Then it's going to be like a, let's say, um, 500, 500 content, that's HTML, okay. The response body is going to be H1, okay. So now, saving this and restarting the server, so see that it's still loading because there has not been any response yet. I've saved the file and I'm restarting the server. Then visiting this endpoint again with visiting an endpoint that doesn't exist, rather should give us this message here, something went wrong, internal server error. Why is it slow? We are on local host now. So this is it. Something went wrong. If I visit some long endpoint that doesn't exist, okay, something went wrong. So, but as a backend developer, it's actually um, a good practice to write friendly error messages, you understand? Messages that your front-end developer can see, that can get and can handle appropriately. You understand? Like in this our case now, this error was because of the endpoint was not found. You understand? So, but somehow we are returning 500, which is wrong. So what we are supposed to have returned is a 404, 404 error. Okay, so it is within this 400 to 499 bad requests status code range. Okay, and the 404 means not found. So your Express app and um, endpoint not found. Okay, endpoint not found. So it is good that you send the correct status code, like in this case 404, so that when the front end receives this 404 response code, the front end can now render the um the the 404 page that has been designed already. You understand? To show the user. You understand? Whenever they visit an endpoint that doesn't exist in your application. So you know that most websites usually have this 404. Like now, if you go to, let's take for example, let's go to github.com slash something that doesn't exist. You understand? You should get a 404 um, response. Yeah. You see, this is it. So they've pre-designed this page before on the front end. So as soon as GitHub's backend sent this response code that a user with this username doesn't exist, 404. So the front end just renders this default page. So that is why you have to send the correct um, status code. You understand? Endpoints not found. So so okay. So um for endpoints not found. Let's save this and start with 7. Okay. So now we now have the 404 um, error message. So this proceeds by adding a new route, get slash about. Okay. Um, else if path name is equal to slash about. Okay. So if the path name is slash about and the method is equal to get um, do this, do this comment, anything. Okay. Meaning give down. So I have to, okay. So this is the status code you send, and then the header with the normal content type. Um, Normal content type text slash HTML, and then response dot um, about the which one content type which then you now have something like the home this thing link the link to the home page again. You understand? Then we have home, maybe the anchor tag, and then I see the file, the start the server. So let me just go back to the home page. Okay, so we are on the home page now. And then when I click the about anchor tag, to take me to the slash about endpoint. Okay, then about page. Okay, so now we're on the about page, and then you can now go back home again. So it's not supposed to be slash home. It's the our home, um, our home this thing is on the root and not slash home. You understand? So that is why we crash the server. So we started the server, and then let's go back on the home page. Okay. Then we visit the about page. Then back to home. What is the problem? Something is so you cannot write headers after the access the client. Does anyone have an idea why this thing is crashing? This is the error message. Um, cannot write headers after they are sent to the client. Let's open our file. So you can I'm looking at this code now, looking at these two different routes, the slash, the home route, and then the about route. You see that here I returned after sending a response. You understand? After sending a response to the client, I returned from this function. You know, this is the callback function. So I returned from this function. You understand? But for this about endpoint, you notice that uh, after sending the response to the user, you understand, we did not exit this function. So the function now proceeded to send another response again after it has sent this response. You understand? So which is very wrong. Which is very wrong. So this server usually tracks um, as soon as you send a response to the client, okay, you cannot send it again. So that connection is as good as over. You understand? So whatever that is going to happen is just going to run on the server and not have any business with the clients anymore. You understand? So that is why we have to return. That is why we have to return so that it doesn't proceed or it doesn't attempt to send this request again. Okay. Are you guys with me? Are you guys with me? All right. Good. So save the file and restart the server. Okay. Home page, which is about okay, so on about page, then we go back to home page. Now, can I say that it works perfectly well without our server crashing? We're on home page now. Okay, sound that's good. Okay, so let's now configure a route that mm, okay. So now let's configure a route that returns users in our database. Okay, else if path name is equal to API slash users. Okay, whether you so you can decide to add a trailing slash or not. Or you just add it. Okay. So if the path name is equal to this and the method is what we get, then response dot right said 200 just the same. Okay, this response dot end. What are we even sending, sir? Okay, so we need to define the users in our database. So we just so it's going to be an array first of all, because I mean when you say users, you are talking about multiple JSON objects. Understand? So it has to be an array, and then this should usually be the structure. Each object in the JSON will have an ID field, and then each user will have a name, of course. Or let's say their full name. Okay. I like to use camera case. Full name is John Doe. And then the second user have an ID of two, okay? And then full name is
Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir. I'm
Amit
cutting you
you.
short. I've been going out and
Sure,
coming
sure, sure.
online. I don't know if the network is from your end. I don't know if the network is from your end. I can't see your screen.
Okay. We just went out. Connection of loss. How long has this been?
I think some minutes now because I'll be going out and coming in.
Uh, because I'll have to step a bit back. Sorry, please. Just give me a minute to fix my network issue. It's one of our daily struggles. Okay. Um, can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen now? Hello. All right. All right. So let's continue. Okay. So our second user is Jane Doe. What's the name? Okay. So this is the let's just assume this is what we retrieved from the database. You understand? When you make a database request to fetch users in application. So this is what it returned, and we will now end up returning this data to the front end. Okay. Users save and restart application. Can't even see this thing here. That's gone out again. Um, Sorry guys, I'm just having bad internet. Just another delay. Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay, so I think my screen is back up. Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Where was I? Okay, so we wanted to return the users in our application. So you defined the user response after and then okay, everything is set. Now let's restart the server and then visit the endpoint slash API slash users, right? Refuse to connect. I think we've broken something. The chunk arguments must be okay. So we have an error here. Something made our server to crash. Release the bug. Type error. It said the chunk argument must be of type string or an instance of buffer or assigned int 8 array received an instance of array. Okay. So I believe this is the response body that we're passing here, which is this users, So it is saying that it received an instance of array. So this is the way you debug. Understand? I mean, at first you might not understand all of this, and then you saw received an instance of array. Okay, the place where you passed array as an argument, which is this place. I mean, if you look at the entire file, the only place we passed an array, you understand, as an argument is in this line 52. You understand? So at this point, you're now getting a clearer picture of what the error message is trying to tell you. So they said the chunk argument must be of type string. So these our users must be of type string and not array. You understand? So now, so what do we do? There's a built-in method that JavaScript has called JSON.stringify. So what does this do? This JSON.stringify basically just takes a normal JSON object. Let's say it takes in something like this. Uh, let me open the terminal. Okay, let me open the terminal. Const a equal to um 1 2 okay. Okay. And then when we do type of A, it is object. You understand? But when you use JSON.string the file, it's basically going to help you to convert this um const string A is equal to JSON.string the file A. So this string A now is now going to be a regular string. You understand? So you just fix um this JSON object, which is a JavaScript, um, this is a JavaScript type, and then now converts it into a string. You understand? Just like a regular string with the whole double quote and just the way everything is here. You understand? So that this way you can pass a JSON object um, as a response in your server. You understand? If you check type of string A, we're going to say that it's now a string. You understand? It's now a string and not an object like this one. So if you guys are following, always interrupt me. Always interrupt me because there's no point moving fast if you are not understanding anything I'm saying. Okay. So we stringified the user object now. Yeah. So let's try it again. Let's restart our server. Okay. Okay, since we are sending a JSON object, we are not supposed to uh, see the content type of this response. So we're actually sending a JSON and not a HTML response body. So we need to correct this. So we need to change it from text slash HTML, okay, to application slash JSON. So now the web browser knows that this response is supposed to be interpreted as a JSON object. Something else broken. Okay, cannot write headers after they are sent to the client. Why? I thought I corrected this thing. Return. Okay. Okay, it was for this one I corrected. So now return. Okay. But instead of always returning, I mean, since this response here is meant for like a 404, is it not best to have it in an else block? Okay. In such a way that if none of these routes is matched, okay, the root, the about, you understand, and then the API slash users. So if none of this is matched, I mean, since this response is meant to be a call for error response. So there should be something like an else block. So else respond with this. You understand? I think is a better way so that we stop mistakenly so execution stops entering this block. You understand? Then so now we don't have to return anymore. Save, then restart the server. Please read out it. Okay. So this is it now. So my Chrome browser has now interpreted this endpoint, this response to be a JSON object. As you can see over here, you can now use this feature here, this pretty print, to structure this response, you understand, this JSON object, that you can read it better. Okay, so that will be all for servers. Okay, so this would, so we've come to an end of this section. Okay, creating servers using the HTTP module. So we see that most of all these things we had to handle ourselves. Things like routing, um, things like writing the what's it called, the response headers ourselves. Okay, and we wrote the content type too. And these are things that our frameworks kind of handles for us, you understand? So we don't have to say if path name is equal to root or method is equal to get. So the framework will usually give us a cleaner interface. So using most of all these um, stuffs, you understand? So please, any question before I leave this, before I move on? Any question, any question, any question? Please throw your confusions at me. Where is Henry? Okay. So I want to assume that the no question since no one is okay. It will be please.
Ralph, wait. The thing I don't understand almost the whole thing that you're doing. So like I'm just saying that maybe if I go through it again, then I'll not ask my question and that's it. Any of the things that you have done.
Okay. Okay. The reason why I want you guys to clear the reason why I want to clear your question before the end of this class is because I'll be giving you an assignment on this. Okay. Your assignments will be based on
Okay.
creating a local server that returns a very simple response. You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
All right. So let's move on.
Sorry, so like today's topic is all about creating local server.
Well, it's actually a continuation of last class. Yes. But I want to move um, into the main topic for today. Move
Okay, okay, okay.
main.js into um, other route main.js. Okay. So now let's have a prep. Okay. So today's class is actually to make us get familiar with the um, FS module. Okay. So this module basically gives us an interface, okay? Gives us an interface and and utilities to be able to access our file systems. You understand? So let's say from your Node application, you can access files on in your server. So it's giving you an interface. You understand? You can create new files, you can read existing files, you can um, you can delete files, you can create new folders or directories. You understand? So it has a lot of functionalities. Okay. And basically, what are files? Files are just um, files are basically just it's like a storage unit. Okay, that is used to hold data. And there are so many types of files, and most most programming today is basically most of the things that we do today in programming is just writing in a text file. So all those .js, .ts, .c, and all of those programming languages, you understand, it's all boils down to writing to a text file, you understand. So a good percentage of files today are text files. Okay. So, and these files have something we call a metadata. Let me open my node console. So, I'd have liked this to be up here. So these files have something that is called a metadata. Let me copy. um, Okay. I'm commenting. Let me do this. Okay. So that's back to the Give me a minute, please. Okay. I'm back. I'm back. So let's read a very simple file now. Let's first get this file sync. And then the file name is okay. So we want to read this file now that is currently in our project root. Okay. So what does this function do? This read file sync do? Read file, then there's now the sync added to it. So the function doesn't just read the file, okay? It's the way you want it to read the file. That's the reason why they added this sync. So this sync means that as soon as we call this function, okay, it is going to attempt to read everything in this file before it returns or before the next execution, happens. You understand? So which means this is going to block our execution flow. Okay, it's going to prevent the code from moving on to the next step. So if this file now is, let's say, 1 TB, it's going to try to read everything, until it has eventually returned the data here. Understand? I explained the other time that um, to read the file is actually reading a file is actually something that can block the execution flow. So which is why you want to perform such extensive operations asynchronously. So you want to leave it for another process to handle. You understand? So that's just for the sake of the class. We console dot log this data. Okay, let's say file output console dot log the data. Okay. Okay, so this is the output it's giving to me. Let's proceed. We'll come back to this. We are supposed to access another property of this data response to get the text. Understand? Get the text of this file, because this is not what's inside this this file that I added there. It's the Django file. Understand? So it does like give us like the byte output. That was 15,000 bytes. Understand? So let's just proceed. Okay. So to access the metadata of this microordinary relation file here, we have a method called fs.start. Okay. And then the method takes in the name of the file, and then I don't want to output any of this anymore. Also the log, that's the size, and starts the end time, then start the this file. Okay. We need to check. So start the size is supposed to return the size of the file, and then the m time is supposed to return the last time the file was modified. Okay. And then this is file method, of course, is going to tell us if it's a file. So executing this will return this. The first one is the size, second one is the last modified time, at least the last modified time, like about few minutes ago. Okay, so this is, I think it's a UTC. This is UTC time. Okay. Yes, this is UTC time, 2 minutes ago. And then its file returns true. Okay. Then yeah, we have some other functions. Okay. Okay. So there's something with different operating systems. Okay. Different operating systems has a way, has different, let's say different file system. You understand, like the way we write a path to a file. You understand? Like let's say if I write this command now, um, pwd, pwd is supposed to return uh, the the current working directory. You understand? So when I print this pwd, it is writing the what is it called? The current working directory, the relative, the absolute part that is from the root slash home slash the user and extra user, and then all of this folder bring us into this place. You understand? So, but with Windows, Windows will probably give you something like, how do Windows write it? I think something like this, Abi, something like this, and then even when you now start writing the parts, it'll be home, and then slash this way. Understand? So, so when you are building an application that is supposed to run in cross platforms, different operating systems, you don't want to have to like be able to hard code those those paths, you understand? You don't have to be worrying about the back forward slash or backslash. So we have methods that can do this for you. Okay. So we have the path.join method that just concatenates different what's it called? Different strings together. So let's say path.join, and I want to join all of these together. Okay. So let's say home electric fire. Okay. Then either there's the comment for data. Then boot camp. Then running this, the path is not defined. Okay, calls path require path. Okay, path. Yes, I cannot run this. You do not consider login. What's the problem now? So I did not close the bracket. Yeah. Missing after argument, please. Oh, this is yeah. Did I add? Okay, okay. That's the semicolon I added here is the reason why it's doing there. So running this now as concatenated all of this part for me. Understand? So I don't have to worry about the different um let's say discrepancies, in different cross-platform environments. Understand? Uh, the next method would be something that would return the directory name for us. Okay. Let's say we have this long string here. We have this long string here, and then once we return the directory name, let's consider log this. Okay. So you see that. Okay. Or let me say I have a file. I have a file. This Cloudinary migration file. Okay. So I want to check the folder or the directory where this Cloudinary migration file is located in. I use this path dot down name, okay, functions. Then also you can also use the path dot base name, path dot base name, path dot base name will return the name of the file, you understand, or whatever argument, whatever the last this thing here, it could be a folder too, you understand. So this is just skip all of this to the main thing. Opening and reading files using file descriptors. Okay. So what are file descriptors? So file descriptors are basically just integers, okay, like integers above 0 or from 0 upward, okay, integers from 0 upward that represents an open file, understand, in your file system. So, and what does this even mean? So basically, when you call a function like fs dot open um, fs dot open file name, understand? Fs dot open file. So basically, a number is going to be assigned to um, this opened file, understand? And that number is what this process is going to be using to identify that file, that this open file now that's currently trying to maybe read or write to. You understand? So, but they actually um, we have standard file descriptors, okay, and this is something that you should do as a developer. You understand? This is something that you should know as a developer, which is the std in. We have um, the std in, the std out, and std error. What does this even mean? Um, we'll find out now. This is the std in. That's file descriptor. So let's print out the file descriptors for these three different HTTP. So let's do the this this to be error. This will be out. Right? Running this now. So std in, std out, std error. What does this three numbers mean? What do these three numbers mean? So basically, std in um, is the file descriptor we used to is the file descriptor we used to write um, into writing like a process, okay? And then the std out is the one that's when you use something like console.log, when you use something like console.log, okay? So JavaScript is going to look for this application is going to look for the std out, you understand? And then it's going to log whatever you write here, the std out. And then the std error is going to be sent to the standard output and standard error um, output, understand? So whenever you see the application will usually be when you have different log files, you understand, for your applications. Let's say a web server now, you have a log file for your normal output, you understand? Let's say when a user visits a particular endpoint, you just log it that, okay, every single interaction they have with the application, you just keep logging everything, you understand? So you have a log file for that. And then you have another log file for errors. So in case the user's interaction should throw an error in one of the services, he just wants to log it, you understand? And then maybe once in a while you come back there and you check these errors to make sure that your application is running well and make sure that the user is not having any difficulties, you understand, that maybe they didn't even complain about. Or sometimes users might have certain challenges with application. Maybe they try to open something and it won't work. But it's not every time that they will meet customer care, you understand? But you want to be able to catch these errors and fix them. So you log those errors, those kind of errors to the std error, understand? And the file descriptor is this too here. Okay. So these three numbers are numbers that you should be familiar with. Okay. So let's just write one very simple function to open and produce a file using the file descriptor. Okay. So let's use this our cloudinary migration.py file. This is actually a script I wrote some months ago to help the client just migrate from one cloudinary account to the other without losing anything, any of the images or files there. Anyways, okay. Yeah, yes. Okay. What is happening here? So this fs.open file, okay, it's a function that that's that opens this cloudinary migration file in memory, okay? in such a way that you have told the application that, okay, open this file. I want to be able to edit it or read it. You understand? It's just the way I have this my main.js file. I mean, I cannot just start writing to it yet. I need to first of all open it. You understand? I need first to open it before I can now write to it or even read its content. You understand? So you want to call this fs.open function before you even start doing any operation on your file. You understand? Then that is for the first argument should not be the name of the file. And the second argument would be um, the mode. Okay, so this R here means that I want to read the content of the file. That is, I do not want to write to the file. So fs.open is going to open this file. Okay, it's going to open this file with the read permission. So if you try to write to this file while it is open, and but you opened it with this read permission, then it is going to fail. You understand? Then if error. So after this permission, the next thing we now have here is the callback function, which takes in the error as the first argument and then the file descriptor of this open file. Remember when we discussed about file descriptors, right? Which is basically an integer that represents an open file in memory. So if error, through error, let's see, maybe the error could be that the file was not found, or maybe the file is let's say just too large to be opened. Understand? So if error, through error, const buffer. So we need to define a buffer. Okay. So we need to define a buffer where the contents of this file that we're about to read now will be written to. Understand? But what is a buffer? A buffer, that's buffer. A buffer is basically um, a buffer is basically, let's say, like an array. Okay, it's just basically a block of memory, you understand, where you kind of like allocate for certain operations. So you just like keep this block of memory that, okay, this place I want to use it to 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 store some content temporarily, you understand, in memory, not storage. So it's going to be stored, that block of memory is going to be reserved for you. And I just allocated about 1024 bytes, you understand, so that I can write the content of this Cloudinary migration file. You understand? So after opening the file, I defined a buffer, then fs.read, then now call the fs.read function. But the fs.read function actually takes a series of arguments. The first argument will be file descriptor. You understand? So remember that this file is open at this point. You understand? So see where I define the fs.read inside the callback function of this fs.open. You understand? So I now pass the file descriptor of this open file. You understand? So that fs.read will be able to use um, that file descriptor and read its content. You understand? Without it, fs.read will not be able to we do not be able to read the file because it's not opened at that point. You understand? So fs.read is the first argument. The second argument will be the buffer that we allocated, which is basically where you're just going to write uh, content of the file. So okay. And the second one would be um, I think this third argument is I think it is this third argument is where in the file we want to start reading from. Okay, where in the file we want to start reading from. So opening ordinary migration file. When you open this file, the very first character here is the 0th byte. The second one here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you say you want to start reading from, okay, let's say you start reading from 41, okay, and the 41th byte. But just to be sure, let me open this file. Okay, the VS Code. Okay, offset. Okay. So the offset is basically the position in the file where you want to start. Okay, the position in buffer to write the file to. Okay. So the position in this buffer now supposed to be capital letter B. Okay, capital letter B, and even the error for the okay. So the position in this buffer now that we defined, so it's going to be 0, of course. Understand? So we want to start writing from the very first byte in the buffer, and then this buffer dot length is how many the length of the buffer. You see, length of the array. So you can actually interpret this buffer as an array. You understand? So how many characters we are expected to write, and then the fifth argument is now the position. Just to specify where to start reading the file. So I actually checked before I wanted to start reading from 41. Understand? So see, but although I don't think I want to write this much output, I want to just do something short. Understand? So say 100, and then we'll now write the callback function that we pass to fs.read, bytes read, bytes read, and then buffer unit. Okay. So this callback function is just taking in the error. It's going to pass in the error, the number of bytes that were read. Okay, we are expecting it to be 100, of course, which is the buffer dot length. And then the third argument is going to be the buffer itself. Understand? Then so if error, through error, if error through error, then console.log read. So let's say the content that was read now is now console read buffer that is string. Okay, using UTF-8 encoding. From the very first byte to the last byte read. What is wrong? Red, not red. Okay. And after we are done, we now want to close this file. So the file descriptor is going to get freed. Okay. We want to close this file so it's not going to be open in memory. So you know that efficient memory management too will determine how well your application will perform. I think our time is up. I think our time is up. Efficient memory management will determine how well your application will perform and the amount of resources it is going to make use of. Okay. So you don't want a lot of files to be open in memory without using them. I mean, if you're not using it, why are you leaving it open? It's just going to continue eating up your RAM. You understand? Until you have none left, your application crashes because of JavaScript repair. Okay, so look at this beautiful thing that there you understand. So let's run it and let's output the let's see what it's going to output. Is it going to work? We'll find out. Yes. Okay, I need to claim, I need to comment these 3 lines out. Console.log. Okay. Save, save, save. Now let's run again. So let's see. So this is where it started reading from. Let me change this to 40 instead of 41. It will start reading from the 40th byte. So do you see? So we are trying to read from the Cloudinary migration file. And I told you to start reading at the 40th byte in this Cloudinary file. And when I open it, Cloudinary migration file, okay, this is where it started. Let me edit. This one here. Mhm. So see where it started outputting from. Um, red. This is where it started outputting from base command, and the base command is the 41 listening bytes actually, but this 40, you know that number starts at 0 in computers, so it has to be 40. Understand? The 40 means 41. They say right now 41 byte. So that is it for reading a file. Okay, just very simple thing here. So we open the file for writing using the read mode. Okay, then we throw any error that it might have returned. Understand? Then we now like try to read the content of the file. We created a buffer. Understand? With 100 bytes. Understand? And then we read the content of the file. We passed the file descriptor that was returned by fs.open. Yeah. Then we now read the content and then we now eventually closed the file after we are done. Very important. So we've come to the end of today's class, and if you leave me, I'm just going to continue talking. So wonderful. My screen has not been sharing. Anyways, thank you guys for joining today's class. This week has actually been a very good week. We've learned about Node.js, okay, creating servers with Node.js, understanding things like modules, and then the programming syntax too. Understand programming with JavaScript, but for Node.js. So we've learned all of this, covered all of this past week. And next week, we are expected to dive into um, building backend systems using Express.js. So we'll work with controllers, we'll work with middlewares, you understand, and maybe one or two API calls too. Okay, so we're going to be stopping here today. So any question, guys, before I eventually dismiss you guys? Any question? Okay, so I'll take that as a no. So thank you guys. See you on probably on Tuesday because on Monday I'll be stuck in Lagos traffic. Monday. So it has to be on Tuesday. Okay. See you guys on Tuesday next week. I'll paste your assignment in the group chat now. I'll paste the assignment in the group chat right now. Okay. So see you all later.
Good evening, sir. Sir, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I have this question. I just wanted to ask you one on one. You get so
Can you wait?
um
Let me one on
eh
one. The
like
the the class is
it's
still
not
being recorded.
okay. Okay. Well, the question is
So,
actually not personal or something, but I want to know because since this time I've not been practicing. That is, we've only been listening and observing what you're doing, the coding that you're writing and all that stuff. But we've not actually
okay.
started practicing it. And many codes, like going through many codes at the same time. After
Yes,
everything, to
yes.
just be like after everything, to just be like
You're watching film.
you exactly.
You're watching film.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
So
Yeah,
I'm
so
kind of confused. I just want to know whether it will get to a stage where you guide us, will now be practicing it because practice gets better.
the
Because if
practice
you
the
don't practice,
practice is this assignment I want to give you guys today. You understand? It's just something that you've done already. So you just probably need to go through the video again to see how I did it and then implement it yourself again. You understand? So
okay.
for the assignments, that is where you practice everything that you've done this week. You understand?
So it will be going in a way that the assignment will be the practice for the whole thing that I've done the week. Or
Exactly,
are we going to
exactly,
be okay? Okay.
exactly.
But my suggestion is that like if because other classes that we've been having, other classes that is
Okay.
the first class before we split it into two. The tutor they will kind of be doing it and will be following them up immediately. That is, they'll be doing it and will be following them. You get so I don't know whether we can take that method here.
All right, next week. Since the main point of all of these classes is to teach you guys Express.js. You understand?
Okay.
So next week when we write Express.js, we are going to be doing it together.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for
All right.
yeah. Good night.
All right. All right. Good night.